Welcome, folks. I'm Jaby Koay, joined by Achara Kirk.
Yo.
We're talking about two films back-to-back. Snake Eyes, a G.I. Joe origin story.
Okay.
As well as M. Night Shyamalan's Old.
Rah.
So, like I said, this is back-to-back. If you want to jump forward to Old, because we'll be doing Snake Eyes first, there's a timestamp in the description below, or you can just kind of scroll forward on the timeline. I think it's got chapters laid out in the YouTube playhead thing. So, Snake Eyes. This is directed by Robert Schwentke, and it's starring Henry Golding and Andrew Koji, as well as Haruka Abe. I was quite excited by this film. I have not ever been truly interested in a G.I. Joe film before, but the fact that it's an Asian-led cast was pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And so you don't see that too often in Hollywood. You know, I had to go and support. I wish they gave their own film support. When I was watching this, I was like, this is a very, very interesting story. I don't know how I feel. A lot of that could have been mitigated significantly if it was simply shot better.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think going into it, I really did want it to be very good for all of the reasons that you mentioned, you know, it being Asian-led. Also, my friend Haruka Abe has a leading role in this, and I wanted to support her. It looked really cool from the trailers, and I'm like, oh my god, I really hope this is a super fun action movie. Then I watched it, and I was like, oh, I mean, it was okay.
Yeah.
It's not terrible by any means, but it's okay. It's fun to watch it in the movie theater.
So that sequence they showed you a lot on the trailer with the freeway and the big rig truck, all the cars and whatnot, the semi.
That was probably like the coolest.
Yeah, in the movie, that was actually
piece.
cooler looking than it was in the trailer, and that's not often the case. Generally speaking, what you see in the trailer looks cooler in the trailer, and then when you get the context for it, it often doesn't really elevate all that much, whereas that was the one scene in the film where I'm like, oh, this is actually more exciting in context with everything else. All the other action sequences were not watchable. It all felt like it was shot by someone straight out of film school, doing an experimental film. Like the camera was constantly like this.
I was like, I can't see anything. Yeah. I don't know who's doing what. I don't know who's hitting who. I don't know what's going on. It's just like frantic, and I felt sick sometimes.
And that's not even limited to the action sequences. There were instances where the camera was just moving around needlessly throughout dialogue and people walking around. I'm like, why is the camera doing this? Why is it so close to the actors like this?
They lost their tripods.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
They lost their goddamn tripods. That was the biggest thing for me walking out of the movie was half the film is sword action and I can't see any of it.
Which is a shame considering who worked on it,
right.
You know?
A good buddy of mine named Travis Wong did a lot of work on it, and I can't see half of what's being done. Like, I felt bad for the stunt people, for the coordinators, for the choreographers, for everyone involved doing this action stuff because most of it is lost and you can't appreciate any of it. So I wondered if it was like a budgetary thing, but my impression after seeing all of that was just the director doing the director's thing. And I am keeping my eye out for that name going forward. I want to see what else this guy has done, if this is how he shoots all of his stuff, because it's not good. I really, really was offended at how poorly this film was shot, because you had a story in there that was semi-decent.
Yeah,
it was
like
journey.
Your classic hero's journey story. You know, he kind of starts somewhere and he has to learn some stuff about himself. He has to make some hard decisions. He fails, but then he realizes what he's done, and then he comes back and he does the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So Henry Golding, I think that he has a very, very nice face to look at, and his acting is fine, but his accent kept slipping in and out, and as the movie went further along, it felt like his accent was just giving up. His accent.
I know, it's kind of like, Henry Golding, it's fine, we love you, you don't have to try with this American accent, I got you, boo. It's cool.
There was a subtitle that said Henry Golding's accent left the chat at like 75% of the way through the film. Andrew Koji, I was convinced was genuinely Japanese. Like he grew up in Japan. I thought he was an actor from Japan.
Yeah, I don't know an awful lot about Andrew Koji except that he was in the show Warrior, which I have not seen yet. But as far as I'm aware, I thought that he was from England.
His father's Japanese and his mom's English. He studied film and theater before traveling to Thailand and Japan, where he started work.
Thailand represent!
So basically, he didn't grow up in Japan, is what it sounds like.
No.
And he managed to really nail that Japanese accent. I didn't catch him slipping out of that accent at any point. You said you did.
It was like slightly when he got really angry, but
Yeah.
I'll forgive him for that because it's really hard to like do the emotion of anger and hold on to an accent sometimes. So I really liked him. I thought he was great.
I think Storm Shadow, aka Tommy, is everyone's favorite character. Like from what I've heard so far in the reviews, that's the biggest takeaway is Tommy's dope.
Yeah, he's super dope. Like they actually wrote him really well because, I finished the movie and I was like, wow, I completely understood where his character was coming from, and I enjoyed watching his journey and his evolution, and I think that Andrew Koji really nailed it.
Yes, I would agree with you. However, Haruka Abe was my favorite character.
She was great.
She plays Akiko.
Yeah.
And I thought she was dope. I mean, I thought she had the most going on in terms of both of them. Tommy and Akiko had character arcs in the film. And Akiko's was the one that appealed to me more because of reasons I don't want to get into, but I just appreciated what she did in the film. I thought that she had more action than anyone else. She had
a lot of action.
She had more of an interesting place to start from and to go to. Like, her character actually went through hills and valleys more than anyone else in the movie, and I thought that was interesting. Snake Eyes, or Henry Golding, he had his own conflicts in the film, which were interesting to see your main character go through. It's a little bit paint by numbers at a certain point where you can kind of see what's gonna happen. Like, you sort of know where all of this is going.
Yeah, 100%.
But they did the best they could with the material they had, is the way I look at it. And
but talking about doing the best they could with the material they had, I feel like they did Iko Uwais a disservice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Iko Uwais was like, I didn't even realize he was in this film. When I saw him, I literally shouted in the theater, and there was only like 20 people in the theater. Everyone's like, why is this dude? And so, why am I so excited? And I was genuinely like, very, very excited to see Iko Uwais do some damage in this movie, and I think they shafted him. Like, they gave him one good intro scene, and after that, he's like, he doesn't do much.
He's like, they say that he's cool, like he's hard master, and you're like, okay, yeah, well, clearly this guy's dope, right?
Yeah.
But I just felt like, considering that they had Iko Uwais and all the talent that he possesses, I wanted to see him do some really, really cool choreography and cool stunts and fights and stuff, and I was kind of like, oh, I mean, I guess I was okay, but anyone could have done that.
Yeah. The biggest thing that was confusing to me was that there's this notion in the film that this clan does not accept outsiders, and it was comprised mostly of outsiders. At least that's what we're watching. And
it seemed that way for sure.
The other confusing thing was, anytime something went wrong at the clan's dojo or whatever it's called, their home, the castle.
Yeah.
Anytime, their fortress. Anytime something went wrong there, it was always the top people who were dealing with it. I'm like, don't y'all have minions to deal with this shit? Why is it always the top dog? Like, you don't send Vito Corleone out to do a job that his gun people will do. You send out the gun people to do that stuff. It's fine, whatever. At that point, I'm being a persnickety snickerdoodle, doodle muncher, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
I'm just being very persnickety at that point. But it is something I noticed where I'm like, you got all these people, and you're doing all the work. What the hell's going on? And speaking of which, all of them are useless. Like, how is it that Henry Golding, or Snake Eyes, comes in and is able to do the things he's doing? That will make a lot more sense when you watch the film. It's like his sneaking around tactics and whatnot. I'm like, these guys have been training their entire lives
like they're
in this
elite
fortress.
ninjas.
And Henry Golding just comes in and just like cleans house.
He's just, naturally talented. I wanted to see more Henry Golding. I wanted to see more Snake Eyes training, actually.
Yeah.
I missed that in the movie. Like, I wanted to see the training montage. I wanted like a Rocky moment where it's like, bam, but like Snake Eyes type,
Yeah, there was some humor at the very beginning of his training, actually, and it never came back, and that makes me a little sad, because there's a line, I'm not going to give away the line in case you guys haven't seen the film yet, but there's a line introducing us into the training sequence that made me laugh out loud, and no humor like that ever came back. Takahiro Hira plays Kenta in the film. I thought he did a pretty good job.
I liked him.
I thought that he really stood out as it's cool, like, we have another Ken Watanabe now.
Yeah. I liked him a lot.
You know what I mean? Like, because like what Hollywood does is like it's fixated on one Asian actor and they go, okay, he's the Asian guy through all the movies now.
He is all the Japanese men in every single movie ever.
What I'm more excited about is the fact that Iko Uwais is in this film, and I'm like, okay, hopefully he gets more work, because like, what's his name? Tony Jaa went back to Thailand. After Fast and Furious, I haven't seen him again. Oh, he did the Nicolas Cage movie that nobody watched.
Yeah, don't watch it.
Yeah, and so hopefully Iko Uwais does more work. And Peter Mensah, I don't know who the G.I. Joe lore that well, so I don't know who Blind Master is. Forgive me. But like, he showed up and I'm like, they didn't explain how he got into the clan at all.
I know,
however,
but considering that they don't accept outsiders.
Right.
Yeah.
However, I thought he was cool.
He was cool.
I thought that what he gave to that role was pretty dope, The cast all around was actually pretty cool.
Really good cast, yeah.
But,
very fun to watch.
And last thing before we move on is I just want to shout out Travis Wong. Woo!
Woo, Travis.
He's a dear friend of mine. And I saw his name in the credits. I'm like, what? You worked on this? And then he just posted on Instagram like the other day.
Yeah. So overall, would you say people should go watch this or miss it or what?
I would say if you're going to watch it, sit further back so you don't get nauseous watching the crazy camera work.
That's actually a really good tip.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a watch to support, but just go in knowing, it's not...
This is a film I would go to watch with friends ready to make ha-has about it. It's not something to take seriously at all.
Just have fun, basically.
So, let's move on to Old.
Ooh, this one. I
thriller.
was so excited about it. Sorry.
A thriller about a family on a tropical holiday who discover that the secluded beach where they are relaxing for a few hours is somehow causing them to age rapidly, reducing their entire lives into a single day.
Yes. We got some fun swag from this movie, and one of the things that they sent to us was this letter from Mr. M. Night Shyamalan himself. Apparently.
You sounded a bit like Grace Randolph. We got some fun swag.
Oh, really? Oh, I wasn't trying to copy her, but I love you, Grace. In the letter, he said, he was really taken by the book Sandcastle, which this movie was inspired by. And the whole idea was, what would you do if you only had a day left to live? Like if you knew that you had a day left to live. And I thought that was just so interesting. And as you watch it, just kind of seeing how all the different characters deal with that is very interesting. And it was, it was all the things that you want from an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I really enjoyed it. At the end of the movie, I turned to you and I was like, yes, he's back.
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan back to form. I love it.
Yeah, I would say that of all the M. Night Shyamalan films I've watched, this one is definitely up there as the more appealing ones, one of the more appealing ones. I know everybody loves The Sixth Sense. I didn't personally love that. I liked Unbreakable quite a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't watch all of his films. I saw Signs.
The Village.
I didn't see The Village.
Lady in the Water.
I saw The Happening. I didn't see Lady in the Water. I watched the one with the split personality. I didn't love that movie.
Split.
I didn't see Glass. So Split was all right.
Yeah, Split was cool.
But I didn't see Glass, and from what I hear, I shouldn't. So here we have, Old. And for me, I was actually quite intrigued with the concept of the film. And watching it, I thought that the premise was quite interesting. The thing is, the film, it kind of does this circle up until the last 20 minutes of the film, if you think about it. And that's okay if you accept that. Because it's really the characters just kind of running in place.
Yeah,
what
can you do? They're on a beach and they can't get out.
Right, I suppose. Yes, this is true. And they're sort of just stuck, and it's them sort of tearing each other apart to some degree. So when you say, it's like, what would you do if you had one day left to live? It's like, I don't really think the film's exploring that. It's more about the chaos of what's going on in their effort to escape, and they just can't. And so they end up turning on each other, so to speak.
Well, it's like some of the characters do, some of the characters don't. It's a very much an exploration into human nature as well. It's like, what would you do? What would you do to survive?
Yeah.
Like, what happens? Like, everything is so compressed, and it's so interesting. And you get the suspense, the scares that you expect from an M. Night Shyamalan film.
Yeah.
But I was also pleasantly surprised that it was really moving for me, and I actually got emotional.
This is one of the films that I feel like has a lot to talk about afterwards when you walk out. Like, if you're able to appreciate everything going on in the movie, if you're able to enjoy it, I feel like you can walk out with a lot of different conversations in hand that are interesting conversations to have. And one of the most appealing ones for me that I walked away with was the brevity of life.
Yeah.
And that was the thing I feel like was emphasized the most in the film, surprisingly. Like, you kind of don't know what's going on until the end of the movie, and you find out, you're like, okay, I'm not gonna say what it is, I'm not gonna even allude to what it was, but it was interesting, and it is very much a conversation worth having as well. You have to ask yourself, what would you do? Through the entirety of the film, I feel like that question is very plausible. Like, what would you do in this particular instance? Like, how would you react?
Yeah, like,
how
who would you
handle
be?
this? Now, that being said, I felt like there were some clunky bits throughout the movie I didn't really quite understand, and I couldn't wrap my head around. Like, there were certain camera angle choices then that later on kind of made sense to me, but like there was one part where, okay, this is not a spoiler, but there's one part that were like basically surgeries happening in the movie, and the camera's kind of just looking up at the sky, and I'm like, is the only reason he's doing this is because the movie's PG-13? Like, I can't wrap my head around this shot.
I think so. I think it's,
like,
you don't need to see that.
Like, there were some weird, very Paul Greengrass kind of camera angles where I'm like, why is it on his eye or this person's cheek or whatever? But there were other moments of pure genius in terms of the framing. Like,
yeah, it was very beautifully done.
Yeah, there were instances where the cinematography was great, and there were other instances where the cinematography was a little bit nauseating, where the camera was kind of spinning around or looking around too much. And so it was sort of a mixed bag sometimes, but for the most part, I think he sticks the landing in terms of the way it's shot, in terms of the way the story's told. I think it's quite compelling. There isn't like a lot of revelations through the film. It's more like two big revelations, if you think about it, like two major plot twists.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Most of the film is about things kind of falling apart and how these characters deal with it, you know, and you get that from the trailer.
Yeah.
Overall, I think that the cast handled this beautifully.
Yes.
We got Gail Garcia Bernal.
Love him.
Vicky Creeps, is that her name?
Yes.
Rufus Sewell.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm saying his name correct, but he is an actor I am looking forward to watching more of. I first saw him in Man in the High Castle, I believe.
Oh, he's been around for yonks though,
Yeah,
Rufus Sewell.
well, I wasn't, paying attention to him until Man in the High Castle.
Right.
And ever since then, I'm like, oh, this guy's really, really interesting to watch. And so I like that. Alex Wolff, I could go on and on about the entire cast. Ken Leung is someone who's been around a really, really long time. He's the token Asian person in the movie.
The cast was
It was
very
quite
diverse.
It was diversity higher the movie.
Yes.
I mean, it kind of felt that way.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
I was like,
It was
yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan's response to
I dig
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
There was some awkward moments in terms of like how the characters were talking to each other, but overall, I felt like it was an interesting exploration into human psychology, into the human condition. Like all of that stuff was fun and definitely worth exploring. I'd say it's definitely a worthwhile watch. And at the very least, even if you don't like the movie, you're gonna walk out with interesting conversations in hand.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I definitely recommend you guys watch this.
And yeah, all right, cool. And stay safe and carpe diem, bitches. That's the old thing, right?
Yeah. Seize the day.
Seize the day. God damn it.
Don't fight with each other. Tell people that you love them.
Set aside your differences.
Yeah.
All right, love y'all. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
Achara Kirk.
Peace out.